right, good morning. So today we're going to be going over more Coosa. We've still got about 3 or 4 more interior wall panels to build, and some hatches. Yep, got to build a few hatches as well. So we're going to try to get at least 2 of these done right away, get them dry fitted, and maybe even start fiberglass a day if time allows us to do that. So what I normally start with is I take and I trace out. I'm not going to be cutting this hole in here as I've moved the HVAC system. So you do want to mark it as close as possible. That way you don't have a lot of excess to sand. I have found that marking on Coosa is not exactly the easiest task. I've used different grease pencils. They seem to eat through those pretty quickly. Right now I'm using a yellow Sharpie. Time will tell how long it actually lasts. I would imagine one of the paint markers or something like that would probably be the best bet. This end against the bulkhead is always the little jagged cut, so you can't really do a lot with it. Once you get it marked, make sure your ends were all lined up. I do like to have the holes marked in these because these 3 holes will be reused, but it really doesn't matter because you're not going to drill them until they get put back in the boat anyway. And you can see in the background, you can actually see the boat. Probably a little hard to see from where you are, but it is marked out. The only thing that really no good about this is every time I build a wall panel, I'm using an entire sheet because right now I don't want to piece them together. So I'm going to have lots of half pieces left over. I'll be using for other projects, so no big deal, but steel is one of those things that kind of bothers me because this stuff is quite expensive. So let me grab my vacuum and I'll be right back. Alright, so what I've done is I've moved it over the edge so I don't cut through the table very much. Like I said before, this stuff is really dusty. It comes off almost as a powder. I do like using a vacuum for it, but the idea is just take it slow. It doesn't take much to cut it. Being the 20-pound series, it really doesn't take a lot to cut through this stuff. So you just want to keep a steady cut so it's not really jagged. I'm running it on a very low speed. It does just fine. No point running it wide open. both hands to make this turn. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually raise it up off the table a little bit. And not cut through the table. If I can help it. And what I did for a workbench for this material is all this stuff came in on an 8-foot pallet. So I took the 8-foot pallet and put 32-inch legs or something like that on it, just to get it high enough I could actually work with the material. Now this is going to be our bulkhead between the kitchen area and the bunker room. So after we get done reinforcing this will actually have a bunk bed mounted to it. Maybe we'll get that today, most likely be next week's episode. They put this stuff down. Grab some sandpaper here. I am just using 220 grit, just kind of to smooth the edges out. Not really trying to take any off. You could probably use a little bit rougher grit and it'd be done quicker. But for me, I'd rather just add that smooth end on it. Now these little things do have a dust collection on the back of them that you can use. I, however, don't use it because everything in here is dusty. So it fits in the corners where the hole meets the bulkhead. It doesn't take a lot. It depends on which side of the line you cut on. You cut on the outside of the line, you're going to have to sand a little bit more. You cut on the inside, well, you're going to have to epoxy a little bit more. Now from the factory, all this is set up. It just has little strips on the hull side, and that's the only thing that was holding it in place, other than it has some screws on it. Now, I'm not going back with any screws. I am just going to epoxy in place. Now, the main reason I'm doing that is because this should never have to be replaced now. With wood, you had to change things out all the time. Maybe you wanted to change the wallpaper off of it. But once this gets fiberglass in, there's nothing to change after that. You just sand it and paint it in place. With the tabbing on the factory level, tabbing just comes through here. Yeah, just on that piece right there, and then maybe here. This will be towards the hallway, so another wall will actually butt up against this. And then this was just had a strip on it, and it was screwed through the top, and the bottom was screwed in as well. So I'm not going to go back with that. So I don't want those strips in the ceiling. So what I'm going to do is I'll put epoxy, a thickened epoxy on the bottom and the top. And when it slides into place, what kind of comes out, I'll actually use and put a fillet on it on each side. And that'll create my round contour. And then when I'm done fairing and painting, it'll just look like the whole piece. Well, at least that's the idea anyway. So I'm going to get the other one set up and come back again. Alright, so now we're going to line this piece up, see if we can, I do try to use the factory edges as much as possible. Seems to help me a little bit on these bulkhead pieces because there is two square sides to them. Two straight ends on every one of them. I guess it's the best thing about old boats. There's not a lot of rounded corners. This is actually the wall between the, I guess you call it the salon, and the bathroom. Now this also had the electrical panel on the other side of this, and you can see when I turn it over, but there was actually a fire in it because you can see where the bottom part of the wall was burned out. Something I didn't see until I tore the boat nearly completely down. No big deal since the whole thing was getting rebuilt and rewired anyway, but I probably wouldn't have tried to get it wired up and working beforehand. Again, this one's got an extra notch in it here. This is where it meets the, I think this is where it meets the countertop. Now that's getting cut out, so I probably need to go look and see if I can even cut this notch in there. So let me get this laid out and I'll be right back. So after looking at it, we are going to leave it in there. Just for the fact that I don't feel like cutting and making that a straight area. I just notch it, and when I glass it, it'll all look the same. So I'm going to go ahead and mark this notch here. This one also has a little bump right here where the face of the vanity is. I'll go ahead and mark it as well and go ahead and notch it out. Saves me from having to cut it down later. Again, against this bulkhead, it's going to be jagged. Just do the best you can when you're, for those of you that are going to try this after watching it. Full disclaimer, if you're not watching any of my other videos, I am not professional when it comes to boats. My background's in actually air compressors and truck mounted equipment. But this was a lifelong dream of mine to take an old yacht and restore it. Well, over the years, I fell in love with offshore fishing, and that's the reason it's this boat versus anything else out there. I will show you in some later episodes the budget, what I plan to do. A lot of stuff is different than you'd see on most of these, and then there's a lot of stuff that is going to be exactly the same. Everything I do, I try to make it as low maintenance as possible. Call it laziness, I just don't want to deal with it. That's the biggest reason. So, as much as I love the look of teak and wood, you probably won't see a single piece of it in this boat. Just for the fact that I don't like dealing with it. I think it's too much maintenance. So just like we did before, we'll go ahead and cut out here. Then push it to the other side and run down the long way. And then we're going to start dry fitting them inside. Sorry, the camera's a little shaky. I'm moving stuff around on the workbench. Let's start down this end. I think it'll make it easier. cut this notch out while I'm sitting here. I know I said it before. This thing right here is worth its weight in gold. Allows you to set it up on the workpiece, whether you work remote most of the time like I do, or whether you're in the shop. I don't even think I have a standard shop vac anymore, if I have that. Alright, so we're going to trim the edges up, and no point in you watching that again because you've already seen it 100 times, and we'll go from there. So I just realized I forgot to turn the camera on through all this stuff I was working on. But it's been a bit of a pain. I've had to take it apart and put it back together about 10 times. I'm hoping it goes in this time. But what I found is this outside wall here, on I guess that's the starboard side, is actually leaning in. I've taken everything out. Obviously there's no supports in it anywhere, so that's part of the problem. But apparently it's leaning in enough that it was pulling this down. I pulled all the weight off of it. I tried jacking it up, and I'm having to modify this thing about 10 times. So my hope is it actually goes in this time. Now this is 100 times better than it's been. 100 times. And I'm still not so sure it doesn't need a little bit more work. It's actually somewhat straight this time. I think once the fiberglass on it, it'll reinforce the board. So you do have some flex in it. So I think once that fiberglass is reinforced, because I've got 2 layers of 1708 going on this one, because the actual bunk bed hangs here. So this is the bunk room that we're actually in right now. The 2 layers of 1708 should stiffen it up enough. It's okay if this moves a little bit. You can see where I really had to cut down on it to get it to fit. I'm okay with that. I do think this corner is still a little off though. Don't really know what I can do to fix that. I'm not so sure the hole is just not folding in a little bit. Really shouldn't be. because I just traced out the exact one I pulled out of here, and it didn't really move much when I pulled it out. But maybe I should have put a spreader bar in it to hold the sides out while I'm doing this. Either way, it's going to have to work. See how much the gap is here now? It was actually a lot tighter than that. I couldn't get it to fit. Kept thinking it was down there. Couldn't find out it was up there. So either way, that'll all have to be tabbed in and fixed. But it's where it should be. So this side's good, as far as I'm concerned today. So going to the other side, and I guess there's a mess everywhere in here. I had not cleaned this thing up, and with not having walls in it, tends to rain in here. So something I found before I was getting ready to put the other one in. Remember me telling you how one of the walls caught on fire? See that? That's all melted fiberglass and no board underneath it. So before I put this wall in, I'm going to cut all that out. Obviously the wood probably needs to be replaced, but what I'm afraid I'm going to get into is I'm afraid that all the floor is going to have to be replaced. I'm afraid I'm going to end up opening up something here that I don't really want to, but either way, I want it done right, so we're going to go ahead and probably go ahead and cut a section of it out while I'm in here. I got the tools in here. Go ahead and cut a section out and see where it lies. I mean, see how far back I got to go. So we'll get you set up and we'll see what happens then. All right, let's get started. I'm going to cut out, again, I got this breathing apparatus on. I'll cut back here. I'm probably going to go all the way to the corner. I don't know if you're supposed to or not, but I'm going to cut all the way down through here, come down the side, and cut this out, because this is obviously rotted out beyond being used. I don't even have my blade on my... What did I do with the blade? Again, what I found works best is actually a metal cutoff blade. This is what works for me. Everybody else can do what they want to do. But I work with metal, and I have plenty of these laying around. So this is what I'm using. Not exactly straight, but it'll work. Once we get that, this tool right here looks ready for finishing it off. about time for a new blade. Alright. Let me grab a... Let's see if I can get a hammer here. All I want to try to do is just try to pull the layer right up. May work, may not. Best I can tell, this is actually pretty good over here. I probably shouldn't have cut it so far. That's sticking pretty good, so I might have made a mistake cutting back that far. I think I did. This side, on the other hand, it's okay that I'm breaking this out. The wall is going to go back in there, and like I said, it's going to be epoxied in, so it's not a big deal if this gets cut out a little bit. It'll leave a little bit of a gap there, but that's not a major deal. Let me get this buttoned up, and we'll be right back. So as you can see, there is quite a bit of damage in here. However, it is kind of dry right here, so I'm okay. I don't know that the whole floor will have to be replaced, but something tells me everywhere there was ever a hole will. And because I have so many holes open right now, none of the walls in, I think what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to go ahead and get this knocked out, and then I'm going to pull off of all the inside stuff and go back on the outside and start really working on it. Get the fly bridge back up top so I don't have to deal with the water coming in there. And maybe get it, sanded and primed and all that other good stuff. And then come back in here in the wintertime. That seems probably going to be my best bet based on what I'm finding. So if you look here, there's no easy way to get this stuff out that I've really found yet. Chisel seems to do okay. If you really want to know how far back the water damage goes, I mean, if you can take, I don't know if you can see this on camera or not, but let's see if I can get you a piece knocked out. Alright, so this is, I'm assuming this is balsa. So you see, this is dry, and this is saturated here. Now, it's not so bad that, okay, can you see the water running out of it? So the only thing I need to do is go ahead and bust it all out that I've got it cut out. Take my measurement, put me a piece of Coosa in here. I don't put plywood back in anything. We've already been through that, so I don't know that it's worth me ripping the whole floor up. I'm going to see as I go down through here if it looks good on three sides and it's just this area here, then I'm not going to be tearing the whole floor up by any means. Because it is solid to walk on, no issues other than the hatches are soft, but we're going to redo all the hatches anyway. So I can get this knocked out. I'll let you guys watch a little bit of it, and then it'll be pretty boring. So I'll cut the camera back off and we'll work on something else. This around the edge looks pretty good though. I don't really have a lot of concerns with it, based on the fact that it's actually coming up. Yeah, that's not terrible. The only problem I've ever found with a wood core boat is once water gets in, it doesn't really dry out. So it can kind of carry, the more water gets in it, the farther it can carry through the core. Again, I'm no expert on boats, but it's my theory on it. You guys know an easier way to do this, let me know. Got all the tools I ever need at the shop, but I don't feel like walking up there. To give you an idea what this is where the electrical box was. So this was all enclosed, all the wires came through here. That's the ones that went down into the bilge. And right up above it, the reason it's so wet right here, right up above it is where the fly bridge tube comes in. So one of the reasons it's wet is my fault. It was already burned. Apparently the cap I had on top of the fly bridge, paddle bolt came off. This is going to take a while, so I'll come back in a minute. You can see most of it's cleaned out now. I'm actually going to go in and cut this out here. If I can get this tool in, if I get a die grinder in, I think I'm going to use a die grinder. I'm going to be wearing gloves for this. Could go in on the other side. Let me just try using the... That's not going to work. All else fails, just keep cutting it. So what we're going to do is, I'm probably going to come in later, cut this out. I don't think I'm going to do it today. Probably should, just see all the ends of it up. But I'm going to cut this out, square, stick a piece of Coosa down in here. I think that's 1/2 inch. What do I really say? So it looks like the balsa was 3/4, 5/8. So if I did a 1/2, or I could do a piece of 3/4 in there. You could do either one. Probably going to do a half and then glass it the rest of the way. But thicken epoxy at the bottom, press it in, then do epoxy around the outside, then glass over the whole thing. All this is going to be covered anyway. I'll smooth it out, make it look good, but there's actually a corner cabinet going in this area, so we'll be back in a minute.